Welcome to HealthCast, the heartbeat of health IT. I'm your host, Sarah Seibert. Today we're joined by Vid Desai, the Food and Drug Administration's CIO. If you missed it, Desai appeared on HealthCast in October to discuss the agency's newly formed Office of Digital Transformation. Desai is coming back to HealthCast today with some important updates. We're going to learn about recent successes within FDA's modernization journey, how the agency's new commissioner and requested fiscal year 2023 budget will accelerate FDA's transformation, and notably the recently published Enterprise Modernization Action Plan, or EMAP. EMAP outlines FDA's plans to shape the agency's future by delivering successful cross-agency efforts that optimize common and essential business processes. These efforts will improve operational efficiency and data use while strengthening the alignment between agency-wide strategic objectives and investments. The action plan has three primary components: to create the infrastructure to support change, develop a common operational approach, and strategically align activities. Without further ado, I'll turn it over to Desai, who will dive into FDA's progress since we last heard from him. Okay, so today we're joined by Vid Desai, CIO of FDA. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you. I enjoy talking with you folks and looking forward to the discussion.
Me too. So to kick us off, FDA recently got a new commissioner, Dr. Califf. How will this leadership change impact FDA's technology and data modernization plans?
Dr. Califf brings a really interesting mix of backgrounds. He's a cardiologist and has been a practitioner. He has a very solid academic background. He's also worked in a number of clinical research organizations and has a great understanding of data and how to use it effectively. And best of all, what I am most excited about is he's a great believer in the use of data. He's one of these rare few individuals, executive individuals, that really gets it. He's worked with tech companies and he knows what's possible to do with data, what is available out there in the world, how to put it to good use. So data, he's sort of, his life has been around data. And so, if you look at what's been happening at the FDA over the last couple of years, we've enjoyed great support and leadership from our executive committee. And Dr. Woodcock, who was the acting commissioner, is also equally as passionate about technology and data. And now she's transitioning to the principal deputy commissioner role, and we have Dr. Califf joining us as the commissioner. So from my perspective, we were already enjoying a lot of really good support from the executive committee. We're also retaining all the support we had from Dr. Woodcock. And in addition, we have a new person joining us who is equally as enthusiastic and supportive and gets the importance of data, technology and data in Dr. Califf. So things have just gotten better. And I think what you'll see is an acceleration of our journey. And, as part of that, if you look at our fiscal 23 Senate testimony that Dr. Califf gave a week or two ago, he has made the technology and data modernization a key part of our fiscal 23 ask. And again, it's really refreshing and empowering to see these executives come in who get technology, who get data, who understand the importance of it, and are willing to give us the support we need to modernize. So I could not be more thrilled with the changes that have occurred and what it means to us. It just means our program being better supported and an acceleration of everything we're planning to do.
That's great to hear. And I know, especially when it comes to modernization, having that top-down support throughout leadership and the senior leaders backing the modernization plans are essential. You briefly mentioned FDA's budget request for 2023. If appropriated, how does FDA plan to leverage the additional funding to drive some of those data and technology modernization goals you have?
Sure. So over the years, because of our past siloed and fragmented culture, we've built up a lot of technical debt. In 2019, for example, we did a study, and over 73% of our IT environment was end of life. Much of our existing systems were built in this siloed, fragmented manner that makes it really hard for us to do many simple things. And many of our systems are so old that frankly, it's cheaper for us to start from scratch than it is to modernize the old environment. We've skipped a couple of generations of technology, and we're better off starting afresh. But right now, the problem we have is over 95% of our budgets are basically going into keeping our legacy systems running. And we have literally little to nothing left for growth and transformation. And obviously, we work in an industry and we support and regulate industries that are growing and transforming very radically. And so our fiscal 23 budget ask is ambitious, but the additional funds will give us the buffer we need for that growth and transformation. Right now, like I said, 98% of our budgets are just going into keeping the lights running with little left for that growth and transformation side. So the additional funds that we're seeking in fiscal 23 will give us the dollars we need to keep up with that growth and transformation. And these are the types of changes, the breaking down of the siloed, fragmented systems and environments that we have and taking a more enterprise approach, rebuilding many of these systems from scratch is the kind of work we need to do. And that's what we're looking forward to doing with the support we hope to get from Congress.
Right, that's exciting. And I look forward to seeing how that evolves. So last time we spoke was right after FDA launched its Office of Digital Transformation. Since the realignment, what successes have you seen in streamlining data and technology operations in your modernization initiatives?
Well, that's a great question. And since the last time we spoke, we've gone through a whole pandemic, I think. The good news here is our modernization journey started before the pandemic. We published the TMAP in September of 2019 and started that journey of technology modernization. We followed it up in March of 21 with the Data Modernization Action Plan. And our initial focus was towards stabilization. And I'm so glad we took the time to focus on that, because when the pandemic hit us, the work that we had done to stabilize our environment is what allowed us to shift to that teleworking with little to no disruption to the agency. And so that investment that we started making early really paid off, and it was a huge win for us. Since then, we've started shifting away from just stabilization now towards more of a modernization and transformation. And very shortly, in fact, by the time this podcast gets published, we will have announced the publication of the third leg of our modernization journey, which we're calling the EMAP, the Enterprise Modernization Action Plan. And the EMAP basically, and the proposed formation of what we're calling the Office of Enterprise Transformation sets the stage for us to align and agree on business process transformation before we apply technology. It's wasteful for us to put technology ahead of the process transformation that needs to occur, because otherwise, I've talked about this many times. If we just modernize technology without modernizing the processes, the business processes, all we're doing is replacing old boxes with shiny new boxes, but the business experience doesn't change much. And so the EMAP basically shows the work that we've done and we're doing in establishing this transformation office, which will basically look at our enterprise processes, establish them where we need to, optimize where we need to, and then apply technology to that. In addition to the EMAP, obviously, we formed the Office of Data Analytics and Research, ODAR, our data-oriented organization. And that basically was a result of the recognition of the role of data and the tools, the technology, the services needed to create and empower data scientists. We formed ODAR to basically focus on that, and that work is well underway right now, and we've made some great progress with ODAR looking at services or establishing services that make it easier for us to capture data, share data, curate data, and so that data focus journey has started, and we've started to make some great progress there. Then on the cybersecurity front, that's another area that we're very proud of, and I particularly, we don't talk a lot about our cybersecurity area, but I will share that since the pandemic, we have seen a 457% increase in cyber threats. And despite that, we have kept all the intellectual property that we're trusted to guard safe. Some of our colleagues in Europe and the EMA had some breaches that were very highly publicized, where some of the vaccine submissions were stolen from them. But we saw similar threats being faced by us, but we were fortunate in guarding ourselves there. And the work that our cybersecurity teams have done, I'm really, really proud of the progress we made. Again, much of that was as a result of the early stabilization focus that we gave as a result of the TMAP. We recently published an annual update on the TMAP and the DMAP, which lists all the progress we've made. If the audience here hasn't had a chance to read that, I encourage you folks to look at that. We're hoping to repeat that on an annual basis to show all the progress we're making. And since starting 3 years ago, the one thing I will point out that I feel the most enthused about is our teams have entered into this new way of working. There's a new culture that's come up. When I first started talking about modernization, and we published the TMAP and the DMAP, even internally, there was a lot of skepticism that whether we'd be able to do much of what we wanted to do. And now what we're seeing is that skepticism has shifted to enthusiasm. We can make the change. People are starting to believe that, and there's almost a bit of a pep in our step of our teams, and things are really starting to happen. So really, really pleased to see that cultural change that's occurred, which is powering much of our progress on the TMAP, the DMAP, and now on the EMAP side.
All right, that's great to hear. And the progress you all have made is really impressive. I have been enjoying covering every second of it. And I'm looking forward to learning more about the EMAP once that comes out. So you mentioned your 2022 Modernization and Action Plan report that outlines FDA's progress with DMAP and TMAP. What are some of the key highlights or takeaways from this report?
Yeah, I think the biggest progress, like I said, I think is the fact that we could support all the important work that the pandemic demanded of us with no disruption. I think is probably one of the most important results of the TMAP and the DMAP journeys. The cybersecurity area that I mentioned, if you think about the pandemic and literally, we saw the stock markets and the global economy basically get into trouble because of the global shift and the changes that occurred as a result of the pandemic. Trillions and trillions of dollars worth of were lost from the global economy. And whoever came out with a treatment or was able to make effective a treatment of the pandemic was probably going to have a bit of an advantage. And so everybody was focused at the vaccines, and there were many nefarious characters as well as state governments looking to steal that, and so that's a result of what we saw in the 457% increase in cybersecurity threats that I mentioned, and being able to protect the intellectual property that was submitted to us from that onslaught of cybersecurity threats is something that I'm also very proud of. But I think the biggest progress that I think we have collectively made within the agency, and I think within the healthcare environment in general, is we now know what is possible if we just apply ourselves and not accept artificial barriers. The pandemic kind of forced us to do certain things that in some unconventional ways. And so we've sort of broken down some barriers, artificial barriers that I think stopped us from making rapid progress. We did well in handling the pandemic, and I think there's a lot of pride across the nation as well as within our agency of how we dealt with it. But we've learned of so many opportunities where we can still be better. And we can be better if we fix our processes and make better use of data. We're very hopeful that Congress will see what we've done, the changes and improvements we've made, and support the transformative changes that we want to make to remain the gold star of regulatory agencies worldwide. We still have a lot more work to do, and we're hoping that we'll get the support we're looking for so that we can continue being that gold star.
That's great to hear. And yeah, those successes are very impressive as I was thumbing through the report. And as I was looking through the report, I came across FDA's Enterprise Data Implementation Roadmap and AI strategy. Could you explain how these initiatives will enhance FDA's ability to leverage data?
Yeah, we've learned a lot from the pandemic about the types of questions that crop up, that we need to answer, or the types of situations we need to help manage. And we've learned a lot about the type of data required to manage those questions and situations. Unfortunately, there's no magic bullet or technology that makes managing a pandemic easier or better. So we're gonna, what we realize is we need to create an environment that is extremely data friendly. We need to get to a point where we can very quickly access, capture data, curate it at scale, easily analyze it, and also not only just use it ourselves, but also share it with appropriate other agencies and academic institutions and healthcare environments so that they can improve their pandemic postures as well. But that all requires a very flexible data fabric to be created. To do this, we had to take a holistic approach and to have technology, but not only the technology to enable the use of data, but we also have to have the training and the training academies to create skilled data scientists that can make use of that data, and we need processes to be able to use that and consume that data very, very efficiently and properly. So. One of the things that I think about a lot is, right now, when you look at the press, a lot of the times we are having to depend on data that has been collected and shared with us from abroad. So, for example, very recently there were a couple of Israeli studies that got a lot of press, and they had some good information that informed the new trajectory of the pandemic. Smaller nations with simpler healthcare systems like Israel and some of the European nations have basically shown what is possible. Our system in the US is much more complicated, but we need to work through that complexity to get to a point where we too can leverage the same data. We have the same data, that's captured, but we've not been able to make it usable or make that effective as quickly as we need to. That's the work we need to do. Our system is far bigger. It is more complex to navigate. It requires a greater effort, and that's what we're gearing up to doing with the TMAP, the DMAP, and the EMAP. And that's why we're seeking the additional funds that we are. There's a lot of enthusiasm for the use of AI and things like that, but AI is dependent on data. And this is where we want to focus on our TMAP, the DMAP, the EMAP, fix those fundamentals so that we, within our nation, can make use of the same data that our healthcare systems are capturing and put it to use like Israel and some of the European nations are able to do very in a very fast way.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm looking forward to seeing how you guys get to that goal. So could you explain the blueprint for good IT model? This was also in the report and I stumbled upon it. And how does this model bolster communication, collaboration, and resource management?
Absolutely. So the fundamental aim of the blueprint for good IT is how do we improve IT in a federated environment? And we come from an environment where our culture, our previous culture, was a little bit of an us and them. Centers pretty much did things in a very center-specific way. And we have some centers which are very well funded and other centers which are not as well funded. And there was a little bit of an us and them culture. And this created a very fragmented, siloed environment, which is a huge challenge for us. We built some great solutions that work well at the center level, but they don't scale or work as well when we try to use them across centers. And the blueprint for good IT basically shows that we're only as good as, at least from an IT perspective and a data perspective, as the lowest common denominator. And if we're to improve IT for all of FDA, then we're going to have to raise the level of IT for all centers. Basically, it's kind of like the rising tide. All the boats have to be lifted up. And you do this by taking some common approaches in terms of how you implement technology, how you collaborate, the sharing of best practices, and having an overall holistic blueprint. And this is essentially the fundamental belief behind the blueprint for good IT is how do we set up a governance structure that allows for the collaboration, the sharing of best practices, and common interfaces where we can easily work across. We again, in the past had an environment where a center would go and define its own change management process, their own incident management process. But oftentimes, things needed to be handed over from one area to another, and because we didn't have well-defined interfaces, it was very clunky. And what we're trying to do with the blueprint for good IT is just set a consistent set of processes by which we work across everything we do in IT. And again, ITIL, the IT Information Library, is very fundamental to this belief. It's a set of very common industry standard processes that have stood the test of time, and we need to implement them in a very standardized, robust manner across all of FDA, and we've started to make some great progress towards that. Those are the types of things that are fundamental to the blueprint for good IT. And again, the whole point behind that is to raise the level of maturity and capability of all of IT, not just one area or another. It's not a competition between us. We all have to work together to raise the total maturity of IT across all of FDA.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I know a lot of agencies now are taking that standardized enterprise approach to make sure everyone's on the same page and really speed up modernization. So earlier you mentioned a little bit about security, and with President Biden's recent executive order on cybersecurity, I'd be interested to learn more about your journey to cloud and zero trust and how these models will strengthen the agency's technology infrastructure.
Yeah, I'm now coming close to 3 years in the federal government, and one of the things that I am really delighted to see is the degree of coordination and enthusiasm to embrace some of these new areas. There's an executive order to encourage the shift towards the cloud. There is the executive order around cybersecurity. There's work happening on the AI front, and it's really good to see the government not only encourage but also coordinate and share best practices in this area. We've embraced the cloud, zero trust, and software-defined networks. Those are 3 core technology areas that are fundamental to our technology architecture within the FDA. When we use the term modernization, what we're essentially implying there is we are rewiring and redoing everything we had in IT to embrace the cloud, to shift our cybersecurity model away from the castle and moat type of a hard perimeter to a zero trust environment, and also the basic wiring of the network, so that we are now embracing the cloud, multiple clouds. How can we have a workload that may work across Microsoft's Azure environment? Parts of it may work in the Amazon environment, but at the end of the day, it works in a very integrated and in a way that is very intuitively obvious to the users. That requires us to create a very flexible software-defined type of a network environment. So those are the things that are fundamental to our technology architecture. And now there is no debate on whether we'll be doing this or not. Those decisions have been made, and everybody is aligned to those priorities and decisions. So we're beyond the debate phase. It's no longer a question of whether we should do this or if we should do this. We're doing them. And it's just a question of how far along that roadmap and journey we are. I sort of think about our modernization journey, having some parallels to the way the Washington Monument was built. Obviously we're constrained by the funding we have available, and different parts of it get built during different eras. So there may be a little bit of a change in color as we build, but the plan is there. We know what we need to build, and we're building it as our resources and funding becomes available to us. But we have a solid plan. We are all aligned to it. We have executive support, and funding is becoming available as well. So everything is aligning towards us accelerating the building of that new modernized FDA environment that everybody has talked about and needs, and we're looking forward to building it.
That's great to hear, and it's exciting to watch those pieces fall into place. So as you're looking to the future, what are some of your top priorities? Are there any new projects in the pipeline that we should keep an eye on?
Sure. I mentioned our most recent publication will be the Enterprise Modernization Action Plan, which will sort of be the third leg of our modernization stool, complementing the TMAP and the DMAP. We're also working on providing more detail. One of the feedbacks that we've got from industry as well as many of our vendor community is they want to understand more details of our technology strategy. So we're going to be publishing later this year a AI strategy, because again, there is a lot of benefit to artificial intelligence, but we want to do it the right way. And like I said, we've got to fix our data infrastructure before we can really go too far forward with the use of proper AI. In computer science, there's this old saying, garbage in, garbage out. If we've got bad data, we'll get bad AI. We've got to fix that data issue first before we can make good use of AI. So that AI strategy will basically give more details about what we're planning to do on the artificial intelligence side of things. We're also going to be publishing a cybersecurity strategy. There's a lot of curiosity to understand. Obviously, we hold a lot of intellectual property submitted to us by our sponsors, and we want to reassure everybody that we take this very seriously, and we'll share some of our plans in terms of how we intend to continue keeping that intellectual property and trillions of dollars worth of intellectual property safe. So those are some areas that you'll see coming out from us shortly. The other thing that you'll see towards the end of fiscal 23 is we are working to put together an enterprise IT strategy. We plan to publish the first version of that towards the end of 23, and then we will publish refreshes to that annually. This will give more technology details of how we are building out the promises and the vision that we laid out in the TMAP, the DMAP, and the EMAP. So a lot more detail about how we're going about building our new environment is coming out. We've already started putting some of this together, but we're looking forward to sharing some parts of this. Some of that will come out later this year, and obviously the IT strategy components will come out towards the end of fiscal 23. So really looking forward to sharing some details there. One thing I did forget to mention, above all, throughout all of what we're doing, the biggest priority for us remains our people and culture part. If resilient organizations are built with great people, and if we create the right innovative culture, they will thrive. They'll continue to make us better. They'll continue to make the agency better. And that ultimately remains our highest priority. So all the technology and all that stuff is exciting, and we're excited to share that. But the secret sauce in everything that we do is our people and culture, and that remains our biggest priority.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting, and I can't wait to see what comes next for FDA. And thank you so much for taking the time to join me today. It's been great to hear more about what you all are doing. Thank you for tuning in, and if you enjoyed the show, please follow us on your favorite podcast app or listen to more at GovCIOmedia.com. Until next time.
HealthCast, along with GovCast and CyberCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. For more podcasts and to check out the other shows, head to GovCIOmedia.com. Watch out for new episodes released every Tuesday and Wednesday across our shows. You can follow all of them in your favorite podcast platform, and if you like what you heard, make sure to let us know by leaving a review. And if you have any topics you think we should look into, contact us at newsletter@gcio.com.